Let's do this. Okay, we'll start sitting today. I've been driving a little bit for the last couple of days, so I need to get into my hips. So it's going to be slightly hip centered with some good abs and shoulders, of course, as always. So just sit and let's actually start all sitting with the right leg in front. And starting to just find your sits bones. So we'll pull the pelvis forward. I'm pulling my sits bones back, so I'm sitting a little bit more upright than my regular just hanging out position. So I'm pulling the sits bones back and already just feel how that engages your legs, your glutes, your core, and how sitting is actually just a little bit easier in general. And then we'll start with little circles. So we're starting to pivot on the sits bones and starting to rotate the pelvis and go slow. Just kind of feeling it out, getting familiar with the weirdness of moving your hips first and not your head or your ribs, and how the weight changes, how the work in the leg and in that side pelvis changes as you're pivoting to the other side. And let's reverse our circle. Just slow breathing, preferably through your nose in. You can exhale through your mouth, but try to breathe in through your nose. Easy in the shoulders. And trying to keep the kidneys and the diaphragm hollowing back a little bit in space, especially as we come forward. You don't want to arch your back, but you want to see if you can round your back actually and ease the shape of the spine. We're not extending in a forward bend. Very good. Let's change the crossing of the legs. And starting out again, we're pulling the sits bones back, softening the shoulders, and we're rotating the hip. And this could be really tiny. This doesn't have to be big at all. As we progress, as our hips open up more, it's going to be bigger. But really checking in, are you pulling with your sits bones? Are you moving your hip? Hollowing the ribs and the abdomen back a little bit in that forward bend, and as well in that rolling backward, because we don't want to fall into extension there either. Just maintaining really the shape of your spine. Reverse your circle. Easy in the shoulders. Pull the knees a little bit apart. Just feel how that engages your glutes more, your hips more, working harder. Very good. And then slowly just coming up to sitting upright and take a little inventory, take a little moment, softening the shoulders, softening the diaphragm back, and then how much pressure can you give down with your feet and with your legs into the earth? And notice that is turning on your glutes. That pushing down, that pulling the sits bones back. And that is a position you can assume many times during the day. Just when you're sitting in your car, on your sofa, preferably maybe on the floor in front of your sofa, or dining room table. Nobody can tell that you're doing it, but you're working really hard in aligning your pelvis with your spine in a different way and working your glutes that way. All right, so let's start out with a little more movement. We're going to widen the legs. Any distance, this doesn't have to be very wide. And we're basically integrating that circle again, but we're going to start out reaching your right hand to your right foot. And this is a side bend. So it's not so much about, can I touch my foot, but can I maybe bring my right shoulder towards my right thigh. And the hands don't have to really do anything. Pull the right sits bone back and your right heel down into the floor. And then we're going to slowly roll through the center. You're going to look down. And then you're going to roll to the left. So the left sits bone is heavier. You can pull your left heel down severely and flex the left foot. And then push down more into the left leg to come up. Make sure your knees are a little bit bent here. So we're going to go back in on the left shoulder towards left thigh. I'm going to circle through and I'm going to push down to come up. And we'll do that again. If your inner thighs feel really stretched here, engage them more, or maybe bring your legs closer together, right? That's always an option. We don't want to stretch the inner thighs. We're going to do one more easy one. We're going to go side, forward, to the right, and then push down to come up. And now we're going to reach the arms. So you're going to rotate your elbows towards each other. Now this is hard because as we're lifting the arms up, our body wants to arch here. So can I pull my sits bones back and pull my diaphragm back, and see my arms are not really by my ears. That's my personal shoulder history, which I'm working on. But can I keep my diaphragm back? Now I'm going to look up, soften the shoulders, rotate the elbows. Take a nice deep breath in. We're going to go back in on the right. We're going to circle through. We're going to come up on the left. We're going to reach the arms. We're going to go in on the left, pull through the center, side bend to the right, and we're going to reach the arms up. And we'll do one more set, side bending to the right, circling through, side bending left, arms reach, stay for a moment, take the sits bones, the kidneys, and the diaphragm back, lift your chin as much as it's comfortable. And then going one more time, left, through the center, to the right, and reaching up. And then take your hands behind you, fingers reach back, thumbs reach out, bring the legs a little closer together. So you have a couple options here. You can bend the knees just a tiny bit, or you can bend your knees a lot and put your feet flat on the floor. You're going to squeeze your shoulder blades together and then lift your pelvis up. We're slightly bending the elbows. I'm grabbing on with my fingers to the floor, and I'm trying to drop my sits bones and lift my pelvis, and then lower back down. Now, if you want, step them a little bit more out. We'll do 3 of those. You can challenge yourself every time differently. Elbows rotate towards each other, shoulders open. I'm pulling my heels down. I'm lifting my pelvis up, and I'm shifting a little bit side to side here. So you're going to push off your hands and coming back to center. You're going to lower down. And the last one could be with almost straight legs. Make sure the knees are still slightly bent. Pull the heels down into the floor. Lift your pelvis up, and then shift a little bit side to side. Keeping your knees bent, activate your hamstrings, pull with your heels down into the floor, slight bend in the elbows if you tend to hyperextend. Imagine you had to pull the mat towards your heels with your fingers. That should bend your elbows, and then slowly lower down and release. All right, we're going to come to the mermaid seat. We'll have the left foot forward, the right foot back. And we're doing that circular motion again. Everything in our body is a spiral, and us spiraling more and being less just linear is healing so many things. So I'm pulling my sits bones back. Now, so here the left sits bone is heavier, the right is probably a little bit up in the air. If you feel like you're sitting like this at the moment, put a pillow underneath your pelvis, and that's going to allow you to sit a little bit more upright. We want to try to not just have to hold on here, but sit as easy as possible. However, not everybody might be there. So we're going to pull, especially the left sits bone back. And we'll just stay in this forward bend. For the first moment, put your fingertips on the floor and have a little assist. So the fingers maybe bear 10% of the weight of your body and your hips and legs 90. And here we are pulling the knees apart, softening the shoulders, and pushing that left leg severely down into the floor. The more you can push that leg down, the more you work it, the better this is. We're not hanging. We definitely don't want to collapse and hang in this position. You want to engage it. Now, maybe take your fingers off the floor. Is your upper body in the middle of your knees, or is maybe the upper body might drift a little bit more to the left? So can you bring the rib cage and the head quite center of your knees, and then push down into your legs to come up? Here, my left glute is still active, super active. Now take your left hand to your right shoulder, and we're going to side bend over that left thigh. I'm aiming with my elbow for my inner thigh, my shin. I'm not going all the way down. Make sure there's quite a distance between your ribs and your thigh, and push that left leg down. Send your left sits bone back and breathe. Just hanging out here. If you want, I like to really turn the head here. I'm looking over my right shoulder. I'm looking over my left shoulder. If this is too much, come up and go back into the shape. But if you can, sustain this and work it. Your glute should be talking to you. One more time, turning the head and the neck, and then looking over your left shoulder, and then look down at the left knee, push down into the left leg to come up. Ideally, you're not using your hand here. If you have to, that's okay. But the goal is to move the body without any assistance of the hands here. Okay, now we're going to go further over. We're going to put both hands on the floor, the right fingertips, the left palm. I'm going to pick up my kidneys a little bit, so I'm not in a super back bend here. I'm hollowing the navel back a little bit, and then I'm going to pull my shoulder blades together. And I'm starting with these tiny little pulses, tiny little push-ups. Make sure your full left hand is engaged, but especially your thumb and index. And just keep pulsing here. You don't have to go very far down. Right now, we're just warming up the shoulders. Make sure the shoulder blades squeeze together and widen. They squeeze as you bend your elbows, and they widen as you extend your elbows. Now you can even try this, just doing this with one hand. You can pick up the right fingertips. You don't have to, but that's a little more challenge. And we're doing basically a single arm push-up, moving that left upper arm bone, the left collarbone as far away from the floor as you can. And then slowly come all the way up. Very good. Let's do one more round through with a little more flow. I'm going to pull the sits bones back, trying to sit in the center of my knees here. Again, if this is happening, put a pillow underneath your left sits bone. And you're going to start to forward bend. My sits bones pull back, my kidneys pull back, my diaphragm. I can slightly draw the shoulders together just a little bit because they tend to over round and then push my head forward. So if I'm pulling the shoulders just 1/8 of an inch together, that'll give me a better alignment in the head and neck. You can put your fingertips on the floor, or you can even take your hands behind your back and rest them on your kidneys to feel, are my kidneys actually really, are they coming back? Or am I extending my spine? You'd be surprised how many times we are still in extension when we think we're not. Now, pushing down to the legs to come up. Take your left hand to your right shoulder. You're going to side bend. Pull the left sits bone down and back, and let's turn the head again. Keep your breath. Push down into that left leg. Easy movement of the head and neck. We're not cranking on the neck. We're just using our eyes to guide the movement, but we're not pulling beyond a point that is comfortable. Push down into that left leg to come up. And then here you have a choice. You can do double hand or single hand and do about 5 of these push-ups here. Pulling the upper arm bone away from the floor, looking over your left shoulder maybe. The right knee can stay down or the right leg can lift up. Thumb and index finger on the left hand are very much engaging down into the floor. Don't worry where your head ends up. If you're sitting on a pillow, your forehead is nowhere near touching the floor, and that's okay. Great. And then keep your left hand, put the left hand even further behind you. We're going to do one extension here. We're going to send the sits bones back, push down in both knees, and then look up to the ceiling. Reach with the right hand as if you're trying to push the ceiling even a little bit more up into the sky. And then turn your head. Look at your left hand. Look at your right hand. Look at your left hand. Keep yielding the kidneys back. That should engage your glutes a little more. One more time. And looking up and then lower down. Okay, let's do the other side. This is a great way to sit on the floor once in a while during the day. I do this when I watch TV at night. Try to sit on the floor in any weird shape or form. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and find our sits bones again. We're going to pull them back. That's going to sit me a little bit taller, a little bit more upright. And then we're keeping that pulling back, that forward rotation of the pelvis, and fingertips can be on the floor or not. Hands could be already behind your back. It's all up to what feels good, or just moderately challenging. We don't want to challenge too much too quickly. And then pull the knees apart. Push the right leg, the right sits bone down into the floor, and we're trying to orient our upper body to be in the center of your knees. If it's slightly off, that's fine. If it's too far off, again, put a pillow underneath your pelvis. And then just breathing here. Easy shoulders. And then one more deep breath. See maybe how much further down can I come with my upper body because my pelvis is rotating. And then push down to come up. And then take your right hand to your left shoulder. Here I'm cutting into the hip and I am side bending over my right leg. And then we're turning the head. Look behind you over the right shoulder and then look up to the ceiling. Try not to lift the chin too much. It's really just we're trying to find rotation on the axis of the neck. Breathing. Sending the kidneys a little more back, diaphragm stays back as well. Even if that makes you round a little more forward, that's okay. Push down to come up. Take your right hand and your left fingertips down. And here we're going to do about 7, 8 of these little pulses. So I am pulling my shoulder blades together. Elbows stay really close to my ribs. Don't let them bow out to the side. We're trying to hold something under our armpits while we're doing this exercise. Breathing. Thumb and index fingers, make sure they're the ones who are really digging down into the ground. And as you push up, notice if your head lifts first. Ideally, it's all about my hand pushing and my elbow extending. We can help it by moving the head first or the ribs first. There's all kinds of options. We'll do one more time, but let's try not to do that. And then come up. And we'll do one more round. Sits bones reach back, finding our forward bend. Again, hands can be behind your back. They can be on the floor. any assist you need. But the goal again is to not need the assistance of the hands. Pull the knees even further apart, pull the sit bones even further back, and breathe. And then pushing down to come up, side bending to the right. So just with the right fingertips, the left shoulder a little bit back in space, and then turn the head, breathing. Easy turns. Use your eyes to go the extra mile, the extra little distance, so you can really look behind your body. And then look down at that right knee to push up. And then we'll take either just the right hand or both hands down to the floor. Make sure the hand is not too far away. So the closer the hand, the harder this gets, but about 10 inches distance from the hip is a good distance. And we're going to do our little push-ups here. We're pulling down, shoulders squeeze together. Take the kidneys back a little bit. You can even hang out a little bit in that lower position to challenge shoulder more. And maybe one more time. Elbow stays close to the body. And pushing up. And then take your hand a little further back. Push the knees down and forward. And we're going to lift up. Send the sit bones more back and the kidneys more back. So we're engaging the obliques right here. And breathe. Now turn your head, look at your right hand. Turn your head, look at your left hand. How little weight can you put into your right hand? And how much work can you put into your legs? One more time, looking up. And then slowly lower down. And release. Okay, let's do some roll-ups, roll-downs. So we'll start sitting upright. And what we want to come to the position is always with the slight bent knees. So no hyperextension. You're going to keep hamstrings engaged. If you know you need a pillow for your head at the end of the roll down, you can put it towards the end of the mat. And this is just for the case that you end up lying down with your chin too extended. Okay, so we're going to pull the sit bones back. We're going to go for a little spine stretch forward. And stretch does not mean we're stretching. We're just forward bending. And then we're lifting up and then starting by rotating your pelvis. We're lowering down as slowly as possible. And then reach the arms overhead. Stretch your fingertips away from your heels, flex your feet, and take a nice deep breath in. So you want to reach densely into your skin. Like how big can you make yourself within the confinement of your skin? And then we're going to reach the arms up to the ceiling. We're going to lift our head and then slowly starting to roll up. Now, if this is impossible, you're going to walk up, use your hands, come into your spine, stretch forward. I'm pulling my sit bones and my kidneys back. And then let's go back into the extension. Pull the diaphragm back. See, I love to hyperextend right here. Diaphragm stays back. I'm looking up. I'm going to lower my hands and I'm going to slowly roll back. Pelvis determines the movement. It's not so much about the spine. Find your big reach, feet flex, glutes engaged. You want to keep the knees slightly bent again. And then reach the arms up to the ceiling. Reach the arms towards your feet. Look at your toes. And then we're going to lift up. And here it's my pelvis rotating to lift me up. And then reaching forward. Knees bent. Pull the heels down. Easy shoulders. They want to so be up in the ears. We're letting that go. And then reaching up. Elbows rotate towards each other. Pull the sit bones back and the diaphragm back. And then lift your chin. The elbows could be slightly bent here, actually. I'd rather have the elbows here and the diaphragm back, and we're looking up than being too hyperextended in the spine. We'll do one more time, lowering down, reaching. Big breath, big reach, yawn into the shape, and then we'll roll one more time up. Sits bones reach back, pull the heels down into the floor, and spine stretch forward. Notice on that spine stretch or that forward bend, the head kind of wants to drop. Can I keep the back of the skull lifted? I'm definitely looking down, but I'm keeping the head and the neck in alignment rather than having that sharp curve there. And then one more lift up, sits bones pulled back, diaphragm is back, elbows rotate towards each other. I'm lifting my heart, I'm lifting my chin, and release. Now, we'll do a half roll down. So here we go. You can make this a quarter. We're gonna just take rolling back halfway, quarter way, left hand out to the side. Now, reach that left hand a little more to the left, relaxing the left shoulder. And then we're gonna start to look at the left hand with lifting. It's almost like a swim stroke. And I'm gonna come up, pulling my sits bones back. And then I'm gonna roll back again, right hand just straight to the right, then shift your ribs a little bit to the right hip is heavier. I'm lifting my hand up toward the ceiling, I'm following with my eyes, and I'm gonna pull my sits bones back. We'll do that again, half roll downs. Looking at that hand straight out to the side, shifting a little bit. Keep your spine rounded, keep it flexed. As the arm lifts, the spine wants to arch. Lift your arm just a little bit, no problem. Pulling the sits bones back to come up, rolling back, looking. Again, feel where your ribs are, where do they want to go, and don't let them move because your arm is moving. That is one of the most important principles, I would say, that we do Pilates with. One more time, rolling back. Maybe there's a bigger circle now. Keep the diaphragm back, keep the kidneys back. Your glutes are on to help you. And pulling up. Last one, right? Maybe the circle is bigger. Maybe your eyes look over your right shoulder. And come all the way up. And let's roll one more time all the way down to the floor. That should have warmed things up a bit. It definitely did for me. Okay, you're gonna bend your knees and put your feet flat on the floor. We're gonna do one more little oblique thing. Well, it's not so little. You're going to lift your legs into your tabletop. So that always incorporates, can I keep my ribs down? Can I pull my arms down into the floor, my thumb and index fingers, and my sits bones? And let's do a couple of pulses here. So I'm going to reach the heels up to the ceiling. Go really slow. As you reach your heels to the ceiling, drop your kidneys and drop the sits bones at the same time. So we're stabilizing, again, the spine, the pelvis, the shoulders. My legs are moving freely because my ribs are so stable and so grounded into the mat, the floor. And as we're pulsing here, don't worry if your legs don't get to be super straight. You don't want to be super straight. 90%, 95 is a great place to be. And let's hold it on this last pulse. And just imagine your feet are hanging in little straps from the ceiling. And hopefully you notice also that the work gets to be a little less. If I feel like my feet are hanging, if I assume that, my body has to work less. Now reach your heels up to the ceiling. and feel the change of work. Breathing here, dropping the kidneys, the sits bones, the diaphragm. The hip flexors might be burning a little bit. And then we'll just bend the knees and lower down. Bring your heels together and your toes apart. So we're coming now back into a little bit of an abduction. We're going to just do a little adductor and glute work. So my feet are flexed, my heels are touching, my knees are reaching apart. And just that simple action of reaching your knees apart should activate your glutes. We're breathing here. If you feel a stretch in the inner thighs, pick up the knees a little bit. Actually, no matter what, pick up the knees a tiny bit, because most of us, we all tend to overdo it here. And then feel how the inner thighs have to work and engage. And so I'm trying to mitigate the work. I'm having outer leg work, inner leg work, and I'm having my glutes pulling my knees apart, and I'm breathing. This is a really beautiful reset for the hip. We're not just stretching one thing, we're collectively engaging around the joint. And then just see if you can, in this shape, shoulders pull into the floor. Can you lift your pelvis up a little bit? This is a very small lift. And we're going to go back, we're going to bridge later anyway, but just feel that your hamstrings might be talking to you. And then lower down. If you need to, shake your legs out, come back into the position, sits bones drop, kidneys drop, my knees reach apart, and I'm going to lift my pelvis up, barely lifting. We want to keep the ribs super heavy, pull the shoulders down into the floor, pull the sides of the feet down into the floor, activate the back body, softening the ribs. Slowly lower that back down. And we'll do one more time. Knees reach apart. Sits bones are dropped. Kidneys are heavy. Pelvis lifts up. Pull the shoulders, upper arm bones heavy into the floor. And slowly lower down. And then just bring your knees together. Walk your feet a little bit wider and just let your knees touch and rotate inward. So we're having a little constructive rest here. Take a couple of deep breaths and just feel. Hopefully the kidneys are quite heavy on the floor. Maybe the ribs are touching a little bit better. This is really all about engaging the back body in a functional way to support the whole system. All right, let's walk the feet back to parallel, and we're going to come back into a tabletop. So sits bones, kidneys, both are heavy, neutral pelvis. I'm going to lift the legs up, and then I'm going to reach my heels up to the ceiling. I'm going to also reach my hands up to the ceiling. Take a nice deep breath in, and then abdominal curl. So I'm lifting my head, my chin goes toward my sternum, but I'm not pushing my head forward. I'm actually settling my brain back a little bit. And then put your hands on the outside of your thigh bones, flexing your feet, and you're going to soften the shoulders down the back and then press your palms into your legs and press your legs into your palms. So we're isometrically contracting, lifting your heart, dropping the sits bones, and breathing here. You can even turn the legs a slight bit inward. Feel what that does to the glutes. Breathing here. Hold this as long as you can. If this bothers the back of your neck, lower your head down, come back up. It should be bothering the front of your neck. If one thing hurts, then it should be underneath your chin. And then bend your knees and slowly lower head, and then 1 foot at a time down. We're going to do one more thing like that. Sits bones are heavy. Arms reach up to the ceiling. I'm going to come back into my tabletop legs. You could stay in tabletop legs as long as we're going to do the next exercise. It all depends where you are. And then we're going to abdominal curl again. And now I'm going to put my hands onto my thigh bones, top of my thigh bones, on my quads. And I'm going to pull my knees in as I'm pushing my legs out. And you might hear this in my voice, I'm shaking. So breathing here, depending on how hard you push, there's more or less shake. My feet are flexed, they're pushing into a wall, and I'm breathing. My skull stays back, my heart lifts up, pushing my hands into my legs, legs into my hands. And then slowly let that go. 1 foot at a time lowers down, and my head lowers down as well. Okay, let's open those hip flexors up. We did a lot of hip flexor work. Now let's extend the hips. We're going to bring the feet parallel, about hip bone distance apart. And that is when we palpate our hip bones in the front of the pelvis, and we're going to narrow the fingers in towards the navel. That first little drop where no more bone is, that's where your heels should be, and your second and third toe. We're going to drop the sits bones, do a couple of maybe little pelvic tilts just to feel, oh yeah, my pelvis is really freely moving on the floor. This is a beautiful massage for the lower back. But we're ending up in that away tilt, the anterior tilt. But we are adding the softening of the kidneys. So that is creating our neutral pelvis and spine. And we're going to pull the heels to the shoulders, shoulders to the heels, and you're going to pick up your pelvis. Don't go high yet. Make it a shoulder and foot exercise at first. And this sounds really weird because it's not, but the more you can pull your feet and your shoulders and arms into the ground, the harder your legs should show up and work. And then slowly pelvis first lowers down. If your head, forgot to say that if your head feels uncomfortable, for the purpose of this exercise, you can put a little towel in underneath your head. Just don't make it that your head looks like this. So you don't want to bring the chin too far down. Normally in bridging, we don't put things under our heads, but if your head is feeling like you're looking behind you, definitely put a little something there. All right, we're going to draw the shoulders down, heels draw up, isometrically, so they're not really moving, but they're engaging the muscles, and then lifting the pelvis. And now let's see, we'll come a little higher, dropping the kidneys, dropping the ribs, and then by the power of your buttocks and your legs, you're lifting your pelvis more. But the higher your pelvis goes, the lower your ribs should sink. So we're never tempted. I mean, we're always tempted to use the ribs, but let the ribs be soft and low and the pelvis comes high. Make sure the big toe of the feet is down. You really want to push through both big toes. We're almost pronating the foot a little bit, and then slowly lower down again. Sits bones heavy, pelvis lowers. We're not rolling through the spine. And we'll do this one more time. Gather everything, shoulders to heels, heels to shoulders, and you're going to pick up. Diaphragm heavy, sits bones heavy. And let's move the pelvis a little bit side to side. And as we're moving the pelvis, the legs move, the knees move, the feet pivot. So as my pelvis goes to the left and my left hip drops a little bit down, my knees point to the left, and I'm on the outside of my left foot and the inside of my right foot. And then I'm pulling so much with my left shoulder down that is fully supported. And I'm floating through the middle, and I'm coming to the right. Dropping the right hip, right shoulder pulls, right outer foot is really pulling down, left inner foot. And switch. So by pulling again with the back body, we're assisting the front body. Your abdominals should be still working. If you feel really good about this, you can lift the opposite arm up As I go to the right, my left arm lifts, maybe my left heel lifts. Keep dropping the ribs. They love to lead here. And then maybe even your head is turning. Let's do one more time each side. Pulling. You should really feel this in your triceps actually too, if you're pulling that arm enough. And then come to center and lower the pelvis down and release. Let the legs turn out. Let the palms turn up. Feel that. Ideally, your whole body is touching the floor. Not necessarily your knees. That's the only part. And your neck, of course. But even my lower back, I can feel is beautifully heavy. It's not jammed into the ground, but it's just kissing the ground lightly. So that's a good sign. All right, let's turn onto the side. We're going to do one quick side exercise. You're going to just put your head down. We're going to straighten both legs. And you're going to flex both feet. So here my left hand is supporting my head. My hips are stacked. My wagon wheels are in line. And I am lifting the top leg up. Now lift it as high as you can. But make sure as you lift the leg, your hip is not rolling back. Most likely back, but back or forth. And that your hip is hiking your leg up. So all we want to do here is we're going to use the gluteus medius to pick the leg up. We're going to do 5 of this, easy in that knee. We love to hyperextend the knee and assist, but the work for this exercise is on the outside of your hip. Turn the bottom foot, the right foot, a little bit more down and tuck the toes. And then slightly engage that foot down into the ground. So you should feel support now on the other side. Again, the knees are slightly soft and bent. So we're not stressing the knee joint too much. And then let's keep the leg lifted. And then we're going to bring the leg forward. And you're going to bring the leg back. Now, if this is too wobbly, put the right hand down. And we're going to pull the leg back. As you pull the leg back, take the kidneys back as well. You don't have to ever touch the toes, but you want to move the leg as much as you can. If you can touch the toes in the back here, that's great. You can touch the toes in the front. First priority is the pelvis. We're not moving the hip around. One more time, forward. Again, if you don't use your hand, it's just more work for your core. And then coming back and release. Come to your forearm. And we're going to do a little forearm side hover. Knees are stacked, hips are stacked. I'm going to pull my left elbow down into the ground. I can turn my palm up, I can turn my palm down. I kind of like it up, and I'm going to lift the pelvis. We're going to come to this in a second again. We're going to finish up with that. But I'm trying to engage the obliques fully, and now my underneath hip is working. My shoulders sliding down the back. If this feels good, lift the top leg up, soften the kidneys back, slowly lower that back down. Do one more time. Pelvis lifts, top leg lifts. Maybe lift the top arm, look at that hand. Find your breath. Keep the sitting bones back, diaphragm back, bend the knee and lower down. Great, we'll do the other side. Okay, both legs reach. Right foot is tucked and turned. And left leg is going to be the moving leg. Again, check in with your knees, slight bend, really important. And you can Also check in with your left heel. Are you leading with the toes, or can you turn that leg severely in and lift the heel up? Nice, yeah, very good. So it doesn't have to be a lot of lift. Again, there is only so much. There's two bones that are talking to each other, so we can't really get that leg all the way up there. Okay, one more time. So five of those leg lifts. And then we're going to keep the leg lifted. This should already be interesting in the hip here. Left hand can support, and we're going to swing the leg forward. The toes are touching. And I'm going to pull the leg back, keep the kidneys back. Your leg might just be touching your opposite heel, right? That would be a great place. And then coming forward. Just don't go too far back. That's a different exercise when we go back. We're going to go forward. You can challenge by not using your hand, using that right leg, glute, even the right arm, side, obliques, all are working. We'll do one more time. Good, and release. Bend your knees, come up to your elbow, forearm. You're going to slide that right shoulder down the back, push down into the right knee, lifting up. Keep pulling that right shoulder down and then soften the kidneys back a little bit. And then slowly lower back down. So you can hold this. You can hold this as long as you want. You can add the opposite leg, but make sure that the ribs are not popping forward. So you want to round. If the head comes slightly in front, that's not a bad thing. Try it out, because we tend to be in this position and no. And we'll do one more time. Maybe the top leg lifts and straightens, and then that arm reaches up. You can look at the hand, softening the kidneys back and lower down. Very good. Okay, so let's come back up to sitting. And let's see. So we're going to play around with a little bit of how do I get up off the floor, but in a really bizarre way. So this is not probably how you would do it in normal life, but this is going to definitely challenge you. So my left foot is set down flat, and my right foot is almost pushing against the left foot, not severely, but just kind of for the shape. I'm going to take my right shoulder down the back, full weight in my right hand. And then let's see if we can just lift the pelvis up here. The pelvis, the foot, the knee, and you're going to slowly lower down. Now, as you lower down, just make sure you're not lowering down with the shoulder lifting up here. So we're pushing, then we're lifting, we're keeping that collarbone really wide, and then we're going to slowly lower down, and then I could collapse if I needed to, but do not collapse before. So you can keep going here. If this is challenging, go for it. If you need more, you're going to slide that shoulder down. You're going to lift the pelvis up, and you're going to step the right foot behind your left foot. So in a way, we're in a side plank here. Yeah, it's a little wobbly. Yeah. And then pick up that leg again. Right foot picks up, and then set it back down and release. So coming back to starting position. We'll do that again. So we're going to slide the shoulder down. Again, if the first part of the exercise is enough, do that. You can just be here. Great exercise. So shoulder slides down. I'm going to pick up my pelvis, and I'm going to step that foot behind. Breathing. Use all of your fingers. Maybe look up to the ceiling. Reach that left hand. Now pick up that leg and set it down, and then lower the pelvis. Very good. Roll out the wrist for a moment. This is a lot of work.
We'll do one more. And I'll give you a bonus on the third one. If you're on a mat, or if you have limited space to the back, scoot a little bit to the front of the mat. So we're going to slide the shoulder down, push down, lift up, set that foot back, and then see if we can now step the left foot back. Odd side plank back bend. Step the left foot forward again. Keep that right knee slightly bent. Pick up the right leg and set it down. Okay, we'll do the other side. Right foot is flat. Left foot is on your right foot. And you're going to slide that shoulder down the back. Make sure your thumb and index on the left hand are really heavy. And we're going to pick up the pelvis. And you're going to slowly lower down. Good. And picking up. And lower down. We're trying to keep that collarbone really wide. So again, you can just keep going here. If this is plenty, if not, step that left foot behind. Slight bend in the knee. Rotate the left elbow a little bit towards your body, and then pick up the leg. Foot sets, and then the hip sets down. Good. If you need any help with the other hand, go for it. It's always an option. We'll go there again. Breathing. Kidneys back, pick up the leg, set the foot, set the hip, roll that wrist, take a moment. That looks good. Do one more. And this one could be the one where we're back flipping a little bit. So I'm sliding the shoulder down the back, lifting the pelvis. I'm trying not to put the foot on the floor. I'm stepping it back. And then maybe my right foot flips back. I'm looking up to the ceiling. Bend that left elbow slightly. Dig in with your fingers. And we'll step the right foot forward. We'll pick up the left leg. And we're going to sit down and release. Very good. So let's do 3. Getting up off the floor and getting down on the floor. So this is something I see every day with people, the challenging of level changes. So I'm encouraging you to try and doing this without holding on. And anything goes, whatever you want. If you sit cross-legged though, you have to kind of roll over that foot. And this, if foot flexibility is not great, this might not work. But we're going to shift and come up. Now, if this is totally impossible, take your hands, come down, use your hands. But I'd encourage you to do this both sides without holding on. And again, it could be anything. You can come to your knees, you can come into this sitting. You can use your hands, put one foot down, put the other foot down, shift and come up. But do whatever you can and practice it every day. Get down on the floor unless you feel completely. If I get down on the floor by myself, you probably wouldn't be taking this class. I can't get back up, but try it. So how severe can you be with this, right? How intelligent and odd and weird and different can this be done? The more you increase a movement library for yourself, the better. Your brain will thank you if you just get up and off the floor as many times as possible. And then last time you're going to come down. And we're just going to do one little toes of fire. One of my yoga teachers would call this always toes of fire. So if possible, you're going to sit on your shins. If you need a pillow, you can put a little pillow here. If this is too much knee flexion, that's always an option. But you're going to tuck the toes under. Make sure all of the toes, I have only 4 that tuck here. And you're going to send the sits bones back, send the diaphragm back, and softening the shoulders. And then push down into your knees, coming up, and then point the toes, and you're going to sit down. So now this is all about how much can I point my toes? Can I extend the foot here? Again, if you need the pillow, put the pillow there. Push down into the shins to come up. Tuck your toes under. And sit back. Sits bones back slightly. And breathe. Again, if some toes are not really tucking properly, use your fingers. Breathing. Breathe into the soles of the feet. And push a little bit more. If your soles are really angry here, push a little bit down with your knees and take a little bit of pressure off of the toes, and then coming up, and you're going to sit back down. I will do one more round, pushing down into the shins, tucking the toes, sitting back, yielding the diaphragm, easy shoulders, breathing into the feet. We're doing this because I like you all. This is not to torture you. Breathing. And then one more time, point the toes, and then sit down. And take a moment, just check in with yourself, see what's going on. And thank yourself for showing up and doing this. And I hope you had a good time, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.